Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Juju Show, episode 11. We've got a packed show of cool updates and stuff to show off for you guys today. And it seems like we're a little light today, so we'll do super fast intros. Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
Hey, I'll go first. I'm Kevin Monroe. I'm on the big data, Juju big data squad, if you will. I'm doing all things related to big data charms and bundles.
I thought I saw some updates. Did you guys have some fancy new stuff come out recently?
You did. You want me to talk about that up front?
Go ahead.
Ooh, I'm excited. So I don't know if folks are aware, but our sort of core set of big data charms comes from the Apache Bigtop project. This is a project that's sort of an umbrella that kind of wrangles big data applications, right, of which there are hundreds. So they had a major release earlier in the month. It's Bigtop 1.2. With it comes a slew of package upgrades, which are welcomed by the community. Brings things in like Spark 2, new versions of Hadoop and Pig and Hive and all that jazz. And so just earlier this week, in fact, yesterday, we made the push for all charms related to Bigtop are now supporting that new release, which is fantastic. We went through a round of CI using our cloud weather report and identified some issues there and got them out the door. So I'm really excited about supporting Bigtop 1.2 in our charms and bundles.
That's awesome. So just right at the last show, they were just getting the Kubernetes 1.6 support out the door. Now we've got Bigtop support out the door. So all of our big solutions are rocking and rolling. And I guess, our next big set will be the OpenStack one, should have their update coming up shortly. I forget when the due date for that's going to be. I think they're every 3 months now, right? So I think they were March. So I guess it'll be coming up in a little bit. Alrighty. Well, that's good to hear. And actually, we had a lot of news on the mailing list out in the community this week of new charms and things to play with. A real quick one is there was a user posted a charm that they're calling unattended, because what it does is it turns on unintended upgrades, or not unintended, unattended, as in when I'm not there, I totally intend to do them. And we'll actually reboot your machines. And it's the use case I find really interesting, because I know I've done this all the time where I bring up some stuff to play with, to test with, leave it up for a few days. Maybe I bring something up to give someone else to play with. And you just never know, because those things kind of come up, you're not actually maintaining that, right? You're not hooking it up to your Nagios. You're not wiring it all into your normal infrastructure. It's kind of fly-by-wire type stuff. And this charm kind of puts a little bit of comfort there, because what you don't want to have is software or things running that can get out of date, that can have a security hole or whatnot that then no one's looking at. I mean, it's all on the same network, right? I mean, I know when I do this, I do it on the same NAS I run at home, or on the same cloud stuff that I'm using, and so it's got to be treated just as much as anything else. And so this is kind of a really quick and easy, small, just subordinate, stick on everything everything that you've got running there, and you can trust it a little bit better without taking it all the way in and making it production grade everything, because not everything is production grade, for sure. The review queue had a couple of hits in the 2 weeks since the last show. The two that I was most excited about, the autoscaler got some updates, so that charm's gotten better, which is awesome to see, because I know a lot of folks are really looking for an autoscale solution out there to help watch those units, see what the triggers need to be, and to help respond by adding units and stuff as that goes. And the other one is really awesome. It's the updated Elasticsearch with support for, I believe it's Elasticsearch the 5 across the stack. And so an updated Elasticsearch charm has been sorely needed. And so that's definitely one that is in the review queue. I think it had 2 small issues, but it's definitely at that test it, play with it, and let's put it to some good use pattern, and I expect it to get promulgated and updated really soon. And so I don't know, you guys use much Elasticsearch?
Yeah, we tried to, and I did the review on Elasticsearch. So big shout out to James Beatty for putting that together. It is a very welcome upgrade to get ES5 in there. I wanted to expand on the issues that you brought up. It's mostly concerning where should these charms live, right? So we want to spread the maintenance, the day-to-day issues that may come up with the charm across a team of people that are interested in Elasticsearch, right? I don't want to put it all on James, although he's an awesome contributor there. So we created a new team called Elastic Ops. And that team, of which James is a member, will be in charge of the maintenance and the day-to-day upgrades and things like that for the Elasticsearch charms. I feel like this is also a good place to stick things like Kibana and Logstash. So all the Elky stuff, I feel like should be maintained by this team. So it's been formed right now. We've also got a repository out in GitHub to house the charm. And so we'll be sort of migrating things out of namespaces and consolidating them under this Elastic Ops team.
No,
the only thing that held up the review. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be really good to do. I know folks on my team, we use Elasticsearch in the charm store for when you search for charms and things in there. So there's a lot of folks that use this, and it sounds like a great opportunity to kind of get involved and to help build out. You don't have to be the sole person responsible, but it's a much better community system getting put together now. So it's exciting to hear and see.
Yeah.
Let's see. Next up, this was a really good question someone had on the mailing list, and it just goes to show sometimes you just know too much that you don't realize what folks sometimes don't know. And I thought it was a very important lesson for kind of all of us to think about a little bit and to kind of keep an eye on. And this was that someone wanted to try to deploy an application twice, but it gave them an error saying the name was already in use, so they couldn't figure out why they couldn't do it. And so all of us that use Juju go, well, yeah, but you can pass in an optional name. So you can deploy MySQL 10 times in the same model. If you want to manage all your MySQL in a single model for some reason, you can deploy it and name it based on what it's for. Maybe you're managing MySQL for a bunch of teams and you want to deploy it 10 times. You can Juju deploy, MySQL, put a space, and then give it a meaningful name to you. This is really common for charms that can act as both leader and follower in scale-out solutions, where you may deploy the same charm twice, one time as a leader and one time as a follower, and then relate the two, and they can do the work they need to do to help set up any kind of log replication and all that kind of sync that you may want. It's not always a case of just adding units. Not everything handles HA in that way, especially because you may do things like say, all right, I want to now have my applications read from all the followers. And so that may be a different relation that you would set up, where the followers that are deployed are related to the applications, and maybe the master, whatever, is a different relation for writes, or however that might be handled. So anyways, it's one of those, it's kind of cool. I mean, obviously it was a really, good question. And it's fortunately, it's one of the, you always gotta love the questions where you're like, hey, we can do that. That's easy. But I think it's a good opportunity for us as a whole to kind of think about kind of assumptions we make on things that are obvious that sometimes sneak past.
Yep.
Next, big email on the list about the Matrix, the testing suite tool. It was kind of shown off at the Charmer Summit in Ghent last time, and someone asked the list about, hey, what's the latest on that? And fortunately, there's a really good update. There's a lot of work that's gone on to it, including Conjure Up support and some other things. So if you're playing with charm testing, make sure to check out the latest Matrix and to see what it can do for you.
Side note there, we use it all the time in the big data charms and bundles. I have a love-hate relationship with the Matrix, right? Because it finds problems all the time. I just hate that. But it gets called automatically from Bundle Tester, right? So if you're using Bundle Tester to test your charms or bundles, no extra work is needed. It'll run through a simple deployment scenario and then start poking at things like killing the Juju D process or removing a unit or whatever. So it's really interesting to think of those tests that you haven't quite written yet, that the Matrix will come in and sort of wreck your shop. But we use it a lot, and like I said, sometimes it's a love-hate relationship, but kudos to Pete VG and the team for making that what it is.
Yeah. No, it's very cool, and I totally know what you mean. It's always fun to have tools that help you catch things you should know but forget sometimes. And so I know there's often code linters, all those kind of tools there. None of us would live without them, but once in a while you're just like, oh, just shush, quit nagging me.
Yeah.
next up, I wanted to kind of do a premature celebration. So there's been a proposal to add Alex Kavanagh to the Charmers group. Now, the Charmers, if you don't know, are a team in Canonical and without, in the community and without, of folks who help decide whether Charmers should be promulgated, help with discussions on best practices, and are kind of like, you know, the heart of really trying to demonstrate, and especially by example, like well-written charms. And so to see new people come up and get nominated, and he's gotten his 2+1s, but I don't think they've congratulated him yet or whatever on the list. So it's good to see folks getting involved. Shooting for that charmer status, it's a little more work. You have to demonstrate that you know, you're following the best practices consistently, and really just congratulations to Alex for that. And lastly, this was for speaking of charmers and folks that write charms, there was a cool little bit of functionality that was added, I think it was the charm tools, in order to help people sort Juju versions. I don't know if everyone knows who kind of hit Zesty, has been released. But now the fun part is we roll over and you can't just sort things alphabetically anymore in order to know which release is the latest Ubuntu. So if you're doing any kind of detection on that in your charms, make sure to take a peek at that standard functionality. The good news is that the work's been done for you and it's been tested out and proven out. So yay. Gotta love useful helpers.
Yep.
All righty, which brings us to our main something cool to show and tell. All right, so I don't know. This was on the list and it got me interested and I started poking at it. And so I wanted to kind of pull it together and show what I've got here. So let me show this browser window. Ooh, let me go to this one. All right, so Tom with Spicule is his team name here, Spicule Charms, put together a GitLab charm. And I had seen a lot lately about GitLab. A lot of folks I know use GitLab. And basically it's an open source tool you might use like GitHub. It hosts code. It lets you do pull requests and code reviews and have issue tracking. And it's really kind of, you know, I don't think anyone kids about it being a straight up, you know, internal competitor for GitHub. Now, you can obviously, you know, pay for GitHub Enterprise internally. And a lot of folks do that, and that's awesome. But sometimes you want to have full control over what you run, how you scale it, changes to the code, what plugin and other material stuff you may want to do. And there's a couple of things that GitLab does really interestingly that I noticed in poking at it lately, the last couple of days. It actually has a whole kind of build framework in it. And what it looks like, you could very easily do things such as whenever something lands, you could actually perform a build and build like a Docker image or something after testing passes, and if it's all successful, and kind of ship an actual Docker image or something out of the build. So that's kind of cool. And then the folks over at Tengu had put together this SSL termination proxy charm. And its job is to take anything that speaks HTTP and provide a Let's Encrypt SSL enabled kind of proxy for it. And the reason I want to play with these together is that obviously you have GitLab, you've got all your source control and your whole points to keep this all private. Well, obviously you also want to make sure that you're serving this over SSL to make sure that any activity and stuff's encrypted on it. So I started playing with this and I started talking to Tom about it. And then Tom actually last night, after I had my demo ready, he went last night and made it even more awesome by putting together this GitLab SSL bundle. So what this does is it literally gives you a one-click deploy, add it to your model, and deploy away a GitHub clone with SSL termination and Let's Encrypt. Really, really easy to do. So here you can see the GitLab charm itself. Walks you through how to go through and set it up. Basically, you deploy it, you pull up the web UI, and you have to set a password for the admin. It's got multi-user support, SSH support. It's the whole 9 yards, right? Some basic config. Now the charm's young. It doesn't support scaling out to multiple nodes yet, and there's a few other bugs I'm going to file now that I've been playing with it. But what I wanted to show is basically this is me running this in Jazz on GCE. Now, obviously, if you want to run this internally, the point's to bring your source code inside. You're going to want to run this on MAS, maybe on LexD, even the manual provider or whatnot internally. You could use the VMware provider that's in Juju to deploy it on top of VMware if you have that inside your company. And you can this could be built out, to be a much more awesome full-out experience. What I did is I loaded in here all my projects from that I have for my open source project that I used to put a lot of time into, called Wiki. It's got a bunch of parts. I have a Chrome extension, a Firefox extension, the actual code itself. And so here you can see it pulls it all in. I'm logged in. I've got my branches, my tags. I could go through and check it out and clone it, and I did. I would go switch over to the terminal and show you, but I don't think it's that impressive. And so it's really kind of cool. So I can go in and look at the current merge proposals that are out. Let's go look at this one. It's a little one-line change. Dope. I totally forgot to put self on this class method. How did I miss that one? And so here it's all running. Now, the things to note is that if you note, I've got this running at https code.bookie.io. So bookie.io is a domain that I own. And this is where the SSH termination proxy charm really, I love how this is two different teams writing stuff that they need that then works together well, because just the way Juju's designed. This charm, you configure it with just the host name of what your let's encrypt DNS name needs to be. So I went to my DNS provider and I went to my domain bookie.io and I added a new subdomain called code, and I linked it to the IP address of my my front end here. And when I did that, it then updated, set up the SSL cert, and got everything ready. And so let's go and show the terminal here. No, screen share. You don't want to see my head. So here you go. So here is the running model. So the GitLab server running, the SSH termination proxy running, and you can see I love the messaging here. So charm authors, messaging is awesome. GitLab is ready. And what's nice, I really like how they did this charm such that the DNS name that I put in the config comes back to me in the message. So I can see that my URL is set up here, code.bookie.io, is ready to go. And all I have to do is create a relation to it and something that speaks HTTP. And in Juju parlance, that's basically an endpoint. And so if you think about it, we have a lot of charms in the store that speak HTTP. I've given previous demos on things like Grafana and Zeppelin. Zeppelin doesn't support HTTP yet. Now I really want to add it so that I could SSL that. The other thing this charm does is it provides simple HTTP authentication. So you can add a username and password to any web app that speaks HTTP, even if it doesn't support usernames and passwords. So if you wanted to throw up a temp file server or something like that, you could use this proxy charm to put it under SSL, stick a username and password on it, and give it to a client or someone to test with and play with. Zeppelin was it's a case where I really want to go add that layer, that HTTP layer to it now. But if you think about wikis, Ghost blog, WordPress blog, anything that speaks HTTP, you can now, boom, one click, put a quick DNS name up and have it much more kind of professional and shareable and stuff than anything we've had to date. And if anyone's set up HTTPS with the Apache charm, it does it. It's good, but it's a little more complicated. I'm becoming a big fan of this let's encrypt, make it easy for me kind of thing.
Hey, do you know, so let's encrypt automatically expires certs after like 30 days or something, right? It's
something like that, yeah.
Pretty short window. So what happens in 30 days or whatever that window is? Does the charm sort of automatically regenerate another certificate, or is it an action that you...
I don't know. The charm's only been out for a week, so I've only been playing with it in short bursts. I haven't hit it yet. That's a really smart question, though. Okay. And I wish that we could get, maybe if Merlin, we can get him to... Sorry. What we should do is ask that on the mailing list and then encourage Merlin. This is where I think there's a couple of things I'd love to see polished out of this. One of the issues is that I set up the DNS name in the proxy charm, which is great. and it sets up the cert, and then it's related to GitLab. The problem is that GitLab didn't pick up that my DNS name for end users. So when I git clone, I want it to be git clone code.bookie.io. But because the proxy is in front of GitLab, it doesn't know about that DNS name. So it was saying you should git clone from localhost, which isn't true. So you have to go into GitLab and you have to change a config setting for it, which I wish GitLab had that in the web UI to set an external URL. It's not. It's in a Ruby file that then generates. And so it's a couple lines. I'll have the step-by-step instructions. I'm going to put a blog post out on how I set this up and walk everyone through. It's really like 4 or 5 steps. It's not, not that bad, that I'll put out following this show to kind of just give you the cut and paste instructions you can kind of see. I think it would be awesome if the proxy could present the DNS name somehow over the relation line back to the application to then pick up whether or not, what to do with it, right? Because it's very common for web applications to be sheltered behind a proxy, especially things that might run on odd ports. A lot of the Java stuff will run on ports 8080 or 8090 or something. And then you put it behind a proxy. Well, obviously the end user is actually connecting at the proxy endpoint, not directly to the IP address of the application. So anytime it generates a link, or in this case, a git clone command or whatnot, it's using the wrong URL and it has to be configured. Okay. So there's definitely some room for this to get more polished and better, but this is already so much easier and so much nicer, and really just, like I say, 2 teams doing things that they need that then, because of Juju, just work together really well. I was just really excited. I had to come show this off.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And so I want to encourage, folks that really want to use, run their, not all code can be open source. I'm very fortunate. I work for a company that does a lot of open source. Juju and all our stuff's available on GitHub and it's public. But, before Canonical, everywhere else I worked, we ran our own code serving internal, be it Git or Subversion or whatnot. And so having the power of being able to do really professional workflows of code reviews with issue tracking, with CI/CD pipelining and such that's available through GitLab in a really easy to maintain and operate kind of charm is really sweet stuff for those folks that run their code inside.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Anyway, so there's mailing list replies, or, both the folks hit the mailing list with their separate charms, one for the GitLab charm and one for the proxy charm. And then, not Merlin, Tom Barber hit up about, I think he even said, Rick's been bugging me, whatever, last night. So he updated and created that bundle today. So definitely check it out. Reply back to those folks who are doing some fun and interesting things, and let them know what you're using it for, and maybe join the community and help make it better. Maybe figure out how to get that domain passed back across the relation. That would be really awesome. And definitely I need my weekend to come so I can try to add HTTP to the Zeppelin charm, because that would be just killer to have that database with a dashboard of different queries and stuff on it, password protected over SSL. Like, that's a killer feature for that Zeppelin charm for sure.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Anything else you want to talk about or show about? Anything else running across your radar? You're just all excited about your big data release. You're
not
like,
yet. I know, right? Yeah, it's hard to.
All right, then. Well, then we will let you all go. It's another Juju Show. Thank you all. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a good day.
See ya.